Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Rangana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Radha Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Gaur Pimanande. Jai Vishupad Paramahamsa Pri Pratgacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Shirabai Charangarvin Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi Viti Founder Sharia's Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Sham Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakansana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Siti Devi Pranamami Hari Pri Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Vyasadeva, unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayasa badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed or practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasayanam Mahat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo bhagavate vasudevaya.
Om Surabhyay Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vatalam pagom langayate girim. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class, reading from Canto number 1, chapter 7. And today we're looking at text number 5. This is the chapter entitled The Son of Drona Punished. So this is the beginning of the chapter, which is describing actually what Srila Vyasadeva did after being instructed by his spiritual master, Srila Narada Muni. And what he did is he sat in meditation, fixing his mind, perfectly engaging his mind in thoughts of bhakti, devotional service. And that was a previous verse. In such a meditation, he could perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead along with his external energy. So now today's text will be dealing with the topic of the external energy. Yaya
Yaya
Samohito
Samohito
Jiva
Jiva
Atmanam
Atmanam
Tri
Tri
Gunatmakam
Gunatmakam
Paro
Paro
Api
Api
Manute
Manute
Anartham
Anartam
Tat
Tat
Kritam
Krutam
Sabhi Padyate
Chapi Abhyate
Chabhi Padyate
Chapi Padyate
Yaya Samohito Jiva
Yaya Sammohito Jiva
Atmanam Trigunatmakam
Atmanam Trigunaatmakam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Tat Kritam Chabhi Padyate
Tatkrutam Chapi Padyate
Yaya Samohito Jiva
Yaya Sammohito Jiva
Atmanam Trigunatmakam
Atmanam Trigunaatmakam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Tat Kritam Chabhipadyate
Tatkrutam Chapi Padyate
Yaya Samohito Jiva
Yaya Sammohito Jiva
Atmanam Trigunatmakam
Atmanam Trigunaatmakam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Tat Kritam Chabhipadyate
Tatkrutam Chapi Padyate Yaya Sammohito Jiva
Yaya Samohito Jiva
Atmanam Trigunaatmakam
Atmanam Trigunatmakam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Paropi Manute Nartam
Tatkrutam Chapi Padyate
Matkritam Chabipadyate Yaya,
Yaya
by which
Mayari
Samohitaha,
Samohitaha
illusioned,
Illusion
Jivaha,
Jivaha,
the living entities,
living entity.
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
self,
self.
uh, Triguna Atmakam,
Tribunatmakam,
conditioned by the three modes of nature,
condition of three modes of nature,
or a product of matter.
product of matter.
Paraha,
Paraha,
transcendental.
transcendental.
Api,
Api,
in spite of.
in spite of.
Manute,
Manute,
takes it for granted.
takes it for granted.
Anartham,
Anartham,
things not wanted.
seeing non-wanted.
Hmm. That,
That,
by that,
by that,
kritam,
kritam,
uh, reaction.
reaction.
Apipadyate,
Apipadyate,
undergoes thereof. Undergoes thereof.
undergo thereof.
Yeah. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai Shri
Due to the external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Kind of repeat after me. Due to this external energy,
due to the external energy,
the living entity,
living entity,
although transcendental
although transcendental
to the three modes of material nature,
to the three modes of material nature,
thinks of himself
thinks of himself
as a material product,
as the material product,
and thus undergoes
and thus undergoes
the reactions of material miseries.
reaction of material misery.
Yes. So, whoops, Prabhupada gives quite a long report, very long. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out by remedial measures, which are to be undertaken, and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity understands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing with or under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, feeling, thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by an essence. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute, impersonal Brahman is refuted herein. This cannot be, because a living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the effulgence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. That does not the Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by external energy. The external energy is always is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewilderment or her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy because such performances are the illusory energy because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned souls. As effective father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts these disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief from the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for performance and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he presently, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of illusory energy are very different to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme Lord, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect devotion and attachment for the Lord. The whole thing is completed by the process, by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestions, uh, the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed. Let's see here. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment, by the external energy of the Lord, and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as the super soul, Paramatma, becomes the spiritual master. And from without, he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and initiator guest masters. This is all. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka. And one last paragraph. No, my God, there's two. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the Kena Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. The living being thus subject to the control of the external energy. Okay, we can start this line again. The living being, thus subject to the control of external energy, is differently situated. It is clear, however, that from the present statement of Bhagavatam, that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the perfect being. The perfect being, or the Lord, cannot be approached even by little cannot be approached even by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyasadeva to see it, and there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusioned being, for the Supreme Being is all cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of monists to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. Had the Lord and the living beings been the same, then Srila Shukadeva Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of illusory energy. And now our last paragraph. Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, first of all, diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, that is, their being illusioned by the external energy. he also saw the perfect being from whom illusory energy is far removed, though he saw both the disease-conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease. And the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is the um, controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus, the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct here that external uh, external relations between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord, and that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned soul each with a name to that goal of life. Haribol. Translation again. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material desires. So here and in other places also, we come to know that actually the all activity, all thinking ability, the thinking ability that we have, the ability for feeling, experiencing, expressing emotions, and the various desires, no one can be without desires. These are all the natural qualities of the jiva, living entity. In other words, by nature, living entity thinks, feels, and wills, which are actually, as we know, the activities of the mind. The problem is that the conditioned souls in the material world are very heavily influenced by the three gunas, the three modes of material nature. And therefore, to regain our natural constitutional position of thinking about Krishna, feeling in relation to Krishna, and desiring, again, in relation to Krishna, we have to adopt the process that is recommended by Srila Narada Muni, that was stressed by him to his disciple Srila Vyasadeva. This, we understand, is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, dealing with the subject matter of external energy. The prakriti, material energy, keeps a living entity in bondage and in suffering condition. And all of our attempts in the material world which are connected with this external energy. Mogasha mogakarmano mogagyana vichetasa rakshasim masurim achaiva mohinim prakritim sritaha will fail, will be failures. Therefore, someone who is intelligent, someone who has come in contact with this transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness will naturally take shelter of Krishna's internal energy. The more we take shelter of Krishna's internal energy, then we are less and less influenced by the external energy of the Lord, and therefore by keeping ourselves constantly engaged in devotional activities, we regain, we again revive our original nature, our original consciousness. That's what devotees are doing every day, have the opportunity to do this because we have received this important knowledge of Krishna consciousness. We understand the workings of the different energies of the Lord. So this is important, what we call tattva. Krishna, he is described as Shaktiman, Shakti. He is the source and the controller of all Shakti, of all energy, of the internal energy, of the Antaranga Shakti, of the external energy, Bahir Anga Shakti, and of the marginal energy, Tatastha Shakti. The Jiva, living entity, belongs to that category. He has the liberty, the choice, the freedom to choose to serve under the external energy of the Lord or the internal energy. So the Bhagavatam, of course, is giving us very nice examples like Narada Muni, who took full shelter of the internal energy of the Lord. So living in a temple gives us that opportunity. Not everyone can live in a temple, but everyone can visit a temple. Of course, sometimes difficult also to visit temple, but everyone can make their home into a temple. Everyone can make his consciousness into spiritual consciousness. And like Vidura, who was traveling for many, many years after being kicked out by our good friend Duryodhana. Duryodhana could not tolerate any longer the presence of his uncle. So Vidura was fortunate to travel to so many places, and he became, he was already very advanced. He became even more advanced, and therefore in the Shastra we have Chanakya Niti, we also have Vidura Niti, many important instructions. That is also meant to be the subject matter, part of the curriculum in Gurukula and Varnashram College, Vidura Niti. Also, we have many important, all of our like Mahajans. Narada Muni is one of the 12 Mahajans. Grandfather Bhishmadev in the Mahabharata, at the end on his bed of arrows, isn't it? On his bed of arrows, he is giving so much important instructions to Srila Vyasadeva. To Yudhishthira Maharaj. Srila Vyasadeva was also there. So in this way, we have so many important personalities, so many wonderful examples of self-realized individuals. So we need to hear from them. We need to follow their good example. And that is why if we focus on being nicely engaged in activities of devotional service, that means that we are under the, we remain protected by the internal energy of Krishna. And the more we are under the influence of the internal energy of the Lord, then Maya does not affect us. So this is being explained here in this verse. Yeah. Yeah, 5. And of course, Prabhupada explains at the end, therefore the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of all the literatures that we have received, that we are receiving from Srila Vyasadeva. The Srimad Bhagavatam is described here as the Samam Bonam, the highest literature that deals with the subject matter of transcendence. And yes, everything is nicely presented in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Yes. So we can close for now. It's people start to work early. Jai Granth Rashmi Bhagavatam.